This is the Unstarving Musician podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. The podcast features conversations with me, indie music artists, and industry professionals, and it's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. If you love what I do here on the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways that you can show your love and support for the Unstarving Musician, including a new podcast startup course by yours truly that you can join to support. Again, just visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn more. My latest single, New Gods Part 2, which was co-written by Peter Rand, drops into the digital wild on May 29th, 2021. You can preview, pre-save, and or download at robonzo.com. That's my artist website. New Gods Part 2 is my personal homage to Zeppelin, Genesis, and prog rock with a little social commentary. I hope you'll check it out, and I hope you like it. My guest, Helene Jæger, has a great outlook on writing music and lyrics, relying on the conscious, unconscious, and intuition. She leans on stream of consciousness writing methods, a practice that I find really intriguing. She creates music under the moniker of Holy Boy. She was born and raised in Norway, did part of her education in England, and has been based in LA since 2016. At the time of our conversation, she had released a single covering the Doors' classic Riders on the Storm, which we talk about. This is part of a collection that was to be released as a debut album in 2020. Helena made the decision to wait in light of the stinking pandemic and its impact on the music business. We chat about this, also about writing methods, the music of her childhood, LA, her band, plans for live streaming, and the future of that unreleased album. Here is me and Helene Jæger. Well, thanks for joining me. I did note that you were from Norway. I have another really good musician friend from Norway who goes by the name Kid Anderson. He's in the blues world, but he plays everything. So nice. He's great. It was kind of cool to see that you're from there. I suppose you speak the language, yes?
Yes, I sure do. That's how I grew up. I never made music in Norwegian.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been playing?
Kind of on and off for probably like almost half my life. I started in my teens, picking up an instrument, being really not very good for a long time, and then working my way into figuring out how I could make music that was a bit more special, that was more like the kind of music that I loved listening to myself, which
yeah, and
it's an interesting process.
Yeah, sure. Are you approaching your mid-20s?
Late.
Late? Oh my
little later than that.
I talked to a guy who I told him, I said, look, I didn't say it like that, but I was laughing. I said, I could be your dad, but he released his first single recently and he was kind of preoccupied with aging out at 25 years old.
Really? Yeah.
So, but the pressures of being an independent artist, right?
Yeah, sure. And the adventures.
Yes, of course. And so, okay, Norway to England and LA to LA. How are you liking LA? You've been there 4 years, right?
Yeah, I came first as a kind of a tourist trip, and I had very little pre-existing knowledge about the city apart from TV, popular culture, and I just loved it. I felt like it really spoke to my soul, and I wanted to go back as soon as possible. And so I've been in LA since, and I love it. It's got this dreamy atmosphere that I've never felt anywhere else. It's almost like the borderline between this world and the other is a little blurry. So it's pretty interesting.
I need to visit it again. It's been so many years, but my last memory was, oh my God, this place is polluted and has way too much traffic. Now, I know it still has the traffic. I hear the air's cleaned up a bit, but I hear a lot of good things about it, obviously for entertainment, for sure. And I actually heard someone say recently that they grew up there and when they were a kid, they couldn't breathe there and they've cleaned it up so much. So
Yeah, there's a lot of nature, which actually surprised me. So you get stuff like I sometimes have like a fox come to my window when I'm working late at night, that kind of thing. I never had in Norway. I grew up in a city. Um, just no animals around. In LA, I've had like scorpions in my house, snakes outside, rattlesnakes, tarantulas. So if you live in the hills, like the Laurel Canyon area, it's very wild.
I think most people probably don't think of it as being such, but that's nice in a way, as long as they don't
Yeah,
get your cat
I
or something.
shouldn't tell anyone because it's a well kept secret how nice it actually is.
That's a good deal. So tell me, I read a phrase in I think one of your bio or you're in your bio, dystopian imagery. Is that something that you relate to or speaks to you?
Yes and no. I think someone else said that, so maybe I do have this kind of dark vibe to what I do. To me, I feel like what I do is kind of dreamy, and that's how I move through life. But there is a darkness to it, I'm sure. This year in particular, I've had so
Hmm.
many feelings like it's like we're in the future looking back at ourselves at this like apocalyptic moment. It looks like we're going to get through it, but there's been like this undertone in society, I guess the collective unconscious, that there's a lot of latent um, imagery that I
Yeah.
like to pick up on from that. So yeah, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was something that you wrote. Sort of read a little bit. When I read these great bios, I'm like, that sounds like somebody wrote, and which is good that somebody wrote it for you. But okay, here's another one. Only because I don't know how much you um, this resonates with you. It may be much like the dystopian imagery, but mostly just for my own curiosity as to what it means to you,
Yeah.
and to educate me. But industrial drone of suicide.
Well, that's the band Suicide, and you know
Ah,
how their music
it's all
used.
clear.
So yeah, now you get what it's like the train tracks of a subway train in New York in the 70s,
Yeah.
like towards early 80s.
The
Yeah.
capital
I
S should have given it away.
well, hopefully. I mean, it would have been kind of mean to say it otherwise if it was referring to the other suicide. Yeah, I think that bio is taken a lot from this article about me that was in Line of Best Fit for this release I had a couple of years back. So that's where the descriptions come from.
I'm
But
probably
yeah, Suicide, big fan,
I think I'm
the
I think
band.
I'm done with it, but now I see you going back to revisit your bio going, maybe I need to update this. So
Possibly.
you somewhat recently released a single cover of Riders on the Storm. What was the release date?
That was in March this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow, right at the beginning of things. It's still kind of recent in my eyes, but tell me about your interest in doing the song, and I would love to hear anything about the recording and publishing of it, if you can share any, struggles or not about it.
Yeah, of course. So I've been a fan of the Doors for years. I particularly like their dark material, the fact that they were so different for the time, and they have this kind of this air of danger. And I like that they some of their lyrics and some of their songs, I feel like they inhabited that apocalyptic landscape as well, and the nighttime LA atmosphere that I really love. So this song I was about to showcase at South by Southwest this spring,
Yeah.
and it was a couple of weeks leading up to it. I was preparing for the release of this cover, which was supposed to be like the lead-in track to my album, which I'm still waiting on releasing because of everything that's happened. And it just turned out so creepy, this song, because when I recorded it last summer, last fall, obviously we had no idea what was going to happen this year. And I
Hmm.
was working with this animation artist in South America who was creating this skeleton moving up a staircase video that I was going to release with the track. And um, just as the release date was approaching, obviously everything in society was going on lockdown. And I realized that it was so eerie, these lyrics that Jim Morrison wrote 40, 50 years ago, so 50 years,
A long time ago.
or maybe even close to 60, that they really resonated with what was happening in an eerie way. So I decided to release it, and it was already in the system. You know, when you put things out, it's kind of tricky to stop them once they've gone through.
Sure.
So that went out, and I've heard a lot of people really like it. They find it kind of, I guess you could say, healing. that it's kind of this calm cosmic atmosphere version of that song. So even though it turned out dark and a little disturbing, maybe, that it spoke to them somehow.
That's cool. I'm glad you're having success with it. I was going to mention or ask you if you had by chance heard an interview of John Densmore on the WTF podcast with Mark Maron. He was in a recent episode, and there were a couple reasons I wanted to listen to it. Well, probably three, I guess. I like the podcast. I'm a drummer, and I kind of had a Doors period in my youth, and yeah, I'm just kind of curious what he would say. It was pretty interesting. So if you have an opportunity and haven't heard it, it's a good listen.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've read his book. I think he did a book about their experiences.
I think
I
so.
pretty much read all of the books about them. My favorite's the Grail Marcus one. But yeah, I'd love to check out that podcast for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember the title of your favorite?
The Grail Marcus book.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was A Lifetime of 5 years, or something about 5 years. I can't
Okay.
remember. I read it when it first came out, but probably 6 years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's good.
I think I read one called No One Gets Out of Here Alive or something
Yeah,
like
I've read
that.
that one too.
I don't know
Yeah.
where that one ranks in the others. It's the only one I've read about them, but I suppose over the years I've heard a lot of things and maybe read some articles. But yeah, interesting band and interesting guys. I have to know, I'm pretty sure that you mentioned this somewhere or somebody asked you about it, maybe in an interview, but the music that your father listened to and how maybe it influenced you. But I'm curious to know, what was the music that your father listened to?
Oh, yeah, that's fun. That's like, wow. Yeah, I grew up in a home where music was on all the time. He was a huge music fan. He never played anything, but he was like, music was his life. He had a regular job, but that was like his identity. And he had a huge record collection. His favorite band of all time was Led Zeppelin, and he had every single record of theirs, and he still listens to them, and he still says to me, like, they have a new live video DVD edition of, I don't know, No Quarter coming out. You have to watch this. It's just so great. He also had the Rolling Stones. He had all their records, The Who. He was a sailor early in his youth before I came along, so he kind of collected a lot of records along the way. And he also loved reggae world music. So yeah, just like a lot of strange discombobulated influences that I guess I picked up on in the background somewhere.
Yeah. And I share a lot of his his music tastes, particularly
Cool.
from my youth. That's funny. And if he's like me, he's always like, "Oh my God, there's another bootleg on YouTube of Led Zeppelin," and I'll go listen to those, even though I've heard.
Yeah.
You feel like, at a point you kind of feel like you've heard them all, but you go listen with fresh ears, and it's fun. And it's a funny thing about YouTube. There are just so many things emerging, of be it all of our favorite bands to how to do something you never thought you'd find out on YouTube that some
Yeah.
8-year-old shows you how to do. It's so funny. Um, so I want to read something that I think are your words, not written for you.
Oh, cool.
You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be might be this is definitely you, by the way. That's so funny. You I think it was for me. I think it might be an interesting talk to talk about using intuition and the unconscious in songwriting and music, which is something I work with a lot, automatic writing and more. There's so much info out there about songwriting techniques, but I've found that when we tap into our inner world, our work comes out much more rich and deep than working to a recipe or formula.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah. I've tried both methods. When I first started writing songs, I feel like, looking back, I was writing from my mind, like intellectually seeing what I wanted to write and then trying to put thoughts onto it. And it just didn't have like a depth to it looking back. It was a little shallow or narrow. It didn't have that profound emotional um, resonance that I really love in music. Because I grew up listening to music and I always loved music. So, but when I started writing stream of consciousness writing, I found that over time it really helped me to tap into a deeper layer of my own creativity and my writing. And it was almost a little eerie, like a little creepy, because the kind of stuff that starts to come out when you open to your own unconscious is surprising. Like you get imagery, you get situations, people, characters that you wouldn't have been able to necessarily think of intellectually. So it becomes this kind of weird treasure trove of like secret things that you didn't realize that you had in you, and it makes creativity really fun. And yeah, just I feel like everyone has this special inner world, and when we can go in there and collect out those things and express with that, it's like having extra juice in the engine. You know, it becomes a lot easier to not get blocked, and also to have, I guess, a unique point of view. So
Yeah.
I like to do that a lot.
Um, when you start a conscious writing session, or do you start with a completely blank slate, or do you use prompts to get going?
Well, I've tried both. The original reason why I started doing this was this book by Pat Patterson called, I think, Writing Better Lyrics. It was something like that. Like I came at it from an intellectual point of view, and then his advice was to start just writing a page for like 10 minutes a day. Just write whatever comes out around, he calls it object writing. So
Sure.
say a leaf, and then you write everything about that. And
Yeah.
I moved away from doing it about an object and kind of just let things come onto the page that wanted to come out, so to speak. And that's when I discovered that over time it just became more and more kind of weird and rich, like there was a deeper layer of me wanting to express itself.
Did the latter method come with a little practice, or when you changed, did it sort of start happening very quickly for you?
Well, I think that it's definitely a long-term project for most people. Some people are probably really good at it, but for me, I guess it's like a pipeline where you kind of have to cleanse out the conscious thoughts and just the stuff you have in your mind, and then the richer stuff starts coming out. But to start with, it was a little stilted, a little stiff probably, but it was definitely worth doing, for
And
sure.
how long have you been writing that way?
About 4 years now.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good while.
I didn't
Since you've
use
been
it
in
for
LA.
songs, but yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't use it for songs to start with, but I realized that all the scenes and the kind of cinematic situations that were coming out, they really lent themselves to music.
What was the original intention for the writing?
It was to get better at lyric writing, really.
Yeah, okay.
Like, yeah.
So there was always the song possibility, yeah?
Yeah.
And now a quick word from our affiliate partner, and then back to the interview. This episode is powered by Bandzoogle, the most effective platform for musicians and bands to build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Powering over 55,000 websites, Bandzoogle features powerful design options, a commission-free store to sell merch, music, and tickets, a built-in mailing list tool, detailed fan data, integrations with social networks, and more. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes a free custom domain name. You, indie musician, can try it out for free at bandzoogle.com. And you can use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year of any plan. Again, that's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. You had an EP that you released in 2018. Was this one that you're holding on to at the moment, the follow-up, or was there something between?
Yeah. The one that I was going to release this year was my debut album.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the plan
So,
now?
I still got it. I love it myself. The thing with that record was the songs were a little close to the bone in this pandemic situation. Like I have I guess kind of a morbid sensibility as a songwriter, and I felt like it was almost borderline inappropriate. So also it's been very busy this year with like everyone expressing themselves on the internet now instead of in physical life. So I just wanted to kind of regroup and think of the best way to launch it moving forward.
And are you still working that out, or do you have a tentative plan?
Well, it looks like things will calm down into spring 2021, so probably around that. Yeah.
All right. Well, that might be good timing. I was looking at the publishing schedule for episodes, and I believe I saw you into April if I just do it all
Okay.
in order. So it could work out quite well.
Great. Everyone.
Well, that's very cool. So do you currently have a band, or do you work just with studio people, or mostly yourself?
Well, I had a band around the EP, but the keyboardist moved to Austin, so I'm kind of again regrouping there for when the record comes out. But obviously, no one's been able to play live per se,
Hmm.
so I'm also working on figuring out a way to make the live or live stream really special.
Have you done any yet?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Still working on how to make it really special and cool, and considering whether to make it just me with like say an omnichord, or how to do that setup in a way that really brings out the atmosphere of the music.
Who are some artists that you've seen do live streams that you really like so far?
I liked Angel Olsen, but she has obviously a really big setup a lot of the time, and yes, I'm kind of trying to figure out where to land on that.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
feel any hesitancy or resistance in thinking about it so much, or is it very just super intentional that it's kind of more part of your game plan, or is it a little bit of a like you're putting it off, maybe a
Well,
little bit?
I was rearing up to showcase the South by Southwest in
Yeah.
spring, so I was kind of already. I had the record. That was my new live show, was based around the record. So with the record being postponed, I kind of have to rethink whether to. Yeah, I'm going to do something now in the new year
Yeah.
to kind of lead up to that, but I didn't want to give away all the songs before they were actually released.
Sure. And I ask obviously because a lot of people, I mean, some people just don't want to do it, live streaming. And then most people that I've talked to, independent musicians, the first times that they did it were just, very stressful for one reason or another. Sometimes it's tech, and sometimes it's just the strange experience of the absence of actual people
Yeah.
in front of you.
Mm.
So, I thought, well, maybe you're actually like, there's some stuff there you're trying to work out in addition to how it's going to look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a bit of a weird situation for
Yeah.
sure. Maybe we get used to it a little bit more, like with Zooming.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, that would have been a bit weird to do. But yeah, it's always interesting to be able to stretch your parameters and learn new things, and like learn how your creative expression works in a new format.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
always a good challenge.
For sure. I am. So I'm publishing my first single ever in early
Cool.
January, and um, I had a sort of a start stop on the video, but I thought, wow, this video thing is going to be a whole another way to express it, right? It can be,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
as you say, um, there are a lot of different formats, even within a format. There are a lot of different things you can do, especially like I'm thinking with video, you can do,
Yeah.
I guess, what we consider a proper video. You can do a lyric video. You can do all kinds of snippets and things. So it's,
Yeah, there's like a world within a world within a world. Once you go in there, there's like a whole new playing field. My ideal thing would be to do something like, did you see Travis Scott played inside of Fortnite? He was this giant character. I'm not a like gaming person, so I don't know if that's the right word. Is Fortnite the name of the game?
oh,
I
right,
think
right, right.
so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if I could do something like that, it would be like a ghost kind of situation, and I would be the ghost that comes and sings to the people in the game. Like I find that really cool when you can use virtual reality and like really to not take the live format traditionally and kind of put it on just the screen, but to try and play with the whole um, expression of live music.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting to see what people are doing with that.
Yeah, that's cool. I saw a wonderful video today that it kind of borrows from some things that have been done, but it was animation, and the song was great. So I mean, almost like the first thing I wanted to ask, it was the young man I was talking about who was worried about aging out at 25. But the first thing I had to ask him was about the animators for it. When I first saw it, I'm like, wow, did he do this? That's amazing. But yeah, it reminded me of why there are so many things you can do, and never having, not having published a video yet myself. I started thinking about it one way, and because of some obstacles and having somewhat to do with pandemic, but it made me think, oh, maybe I need to approach it differently. And animation is certainly a route. And I love the idea that you have as well. It's a very creative aspect that could happen.
Fingers crossed I get to Travis Scott level influence.
Yeah, exactly.
He's cool.
Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me for a chat. I dig your music. When the release or anything else drips out, let me know.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun talking.
For sure. Enjoy
And
your
good
holidays.
luck with your single.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to hear it.
I appreciate it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, great.
Cheers.
Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Are you a musician or creator looking to get your ideas out to a new audience? Have you been wanting to create a podcast but a little lost as to where to start? Check out Podcast Startup, powered by the Unstarving Musician. It's a course I've designed to give you the know-how, tools, and resources to create and market a sustainable podcast like the Unstarving Musician. Podcasting has opened many channels for my own creativity, and I'd love for you to experience the same. To learn more, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup or the show notes for this episode. Thanks again for listening. If you loved this episode, please follow the podcast on your favorite audio platform. It will help you stay on top of the latest episodes and help other indie musicians and indie music fans find the podcast. And if you have feedback, please go to unstarvingmusician.com to get all my contact info. You can text me, call me, email me, leave a voice message right there on that page. Just go down to the bottom of the page and you'll find everything you need to know. I really would love to hear any of your comments, suggestions, questions, whatever you've got. And you can find links to just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. All right, I'm peacing out. Thank you for listening and sharing with your musician friends and fellow indie music fans. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.